Hey guys, welcome to the video. This video is actually a battle report, which I'm going to do, which is Sharp's practice, and it's going to be the American Civil War skirmish. So this is going to be a solo game, something I'm going to just hopefully do a couple of going forward. But this is mainly just to get me to re-jog my memory on the rules, ready for when we come out of lockdown and I can play more games. As I got a friend who's currently building up a Confederate army, so it'd be nice to get some games with him. So yeah, like I said, American Civil War Sharp's practice. I'm actually going to be running a scenario from the book, which is scenario 3, Defense in Depth. And what that is attacking force basically taking on a defensive position, which I think lends itself to solo play because the attacker can be attacking and the defender can be a bit more stationary, because obviously I'm not going to outwit myself on manoeuvres with troops because I know what I'm going to do. So if one side has more of a defensible position, then they don't really have to move. It's just more down to random activation, which Sharp's practice does. So I'll explain a bit more about the scenario in a minute. I'll quickly go through the forces as well. Again, I'll show that, but I've just gone for the kind of base list in the book as well, for both sides. Again, rather than overcomplicate and trying to build my own lists, I'll just go with what they send me or what they give you, and we can go from there. So what I'll do is quickly jump down, I'll show you the table, and then I'll look at the forces. Or actually, I'll go table, scenario, then forces. Okay, so we taking a look at the scenario now. So this is the scenario, like I said, scenario 3. I'm going to apologise quickly for a shaky cam because I'm doing this holding the phone, but we'll do my best with it. So what this is we've got 2 defensible deployment zones for the defenders, and then 2 potential for attacking. So kind of going up a narrow table for the battle, but basically the attackers are going to have to try punch through 2 lines of defence to take the objective and win the battle. So like I said, we got the defender's got potential to deploy into 2 zones. Force support, as you can hear, roll on a d6. I have actually already rolled a d6, and I've come up with a 5, so both sides get 16 points, which I've already totaled into the list, so I'll show you in a bit. Like I said, the objective is just take the primary deployment zone, which is number 1. I'm not having any minor characters, and there's no specific terrain for this scenario. So what I'll do now is just quickly show you the table, and then I'll show you the forces. Okay, so this is just the table we've got set up. Admittedly, I've got a load of stuff on there now, so I probably should have taken the book off. But we've got, here is going to be the attacking force moving onto the table this side. We've got like a road going through the middle, Crossroads, and then we've got a kind of a bridge. So we've got 2 kind of strategic points here for the defence to try hold, and then the defenders are going to be deploying. We've got a zone here and then the second zone there, so we've kind of got potentially defenders to try hold the bridge and then also maybe push for the Crossroads. So yeah, kind of basic table for now, but I'm working on the terrain, so I'll just move now on to showing you the forces. Okay, so we're looking at the first force, which is the attacking force, which are the Confederates. So this is, like I said, from the book, a standard force. So I've got a 3 8-man unit of standard infantry with muskets. They started off with a status 2 leader, but because I had a force support, I bumped him up to a status 3, and I've given him a status 2 as well. So this unit is they're the 2nd Virginia, and their status 3 leader is Colonel Adams, and he's supported with Lieutenant Gregg. And then in the back here, I've got 2 8-man unit of infantry with rifled muskets, so slightly better shot. They started with a status 2 leader, and they've kept that, and I've given them another status 2 leader. So this is the 4th Virginia, and they're being led by Colonel Wright and supported by Captain Lee. With the flags and drums on this force, that doesn't mean anything mechanically wise, it's just purely there to look nice. And then out the back here I've got a 6-man skirmisher unit, and they're led by Captain Foster. Okay, so we're taking a look at the Union force now. So to start with, they've got a big 3-8-man unit, or 3x8-man unit of infantry with rifled muskets. They're the 69th New York, and they are led by Status 3 leader, Colonel Yard, Lieutenant Colonel Yard, sorry, and they have another Status 2 leader chucked in with them, who is Captain Morgan, and that was because of the force support. I allowed a few more points, so I bought him. Far left, we've got a 2x8-man unit of infantry with rifled muskets again. They had a Status 1 leader originally signed to him, but I upgraded him to Status 2, and I gave them another Status 1 leader as well. So they are led by Captain Greaves, and also supported by Lieutenant Buckner. And that unit over there is represented by the 20th Maine. And at the back, they've got a 6-man skirmishing unit led by one, let me have a look, Lieutenant Wood. Okay, so now we're going to roll on to force morale. So to start with, we're going to roll on the Confederate force morale. So at the moment, everything's base 8, and then D6 will then modify it. So, so I've just rolled a 6 for the Confederates, which means their morale will be set to 11. So I'll chuck their marker on 11. Excuse the terrible force morale markers, but I haven't got anything else. Okay, so now we'll go into the Union side. So the Union side got a 4, which means they get to 10. So they're actually not too bad. Could be a bit worse. Okay, so that's the force morale dealt with. The game is, first turn goes to the person with the least morale, so that's going to go to the Union. So the Union are going to get set up with their deployment markers, and we'll get the game going. So I'll show you the deployment, and then we'll go. Okay, so we've put the deployment points down. So the Confederates are going to start on the road there. It makes sense, marching on via a road. We've got a Union deployment point down here on a road coming into the field. And then back there we've got the secondary deployment point for the Union. So I'm going to get these chaps off the table, and then we're ready to start the first round. So get everything in my little bag, and then we're going to start pulling. Okay, so this is the wrap up of turn 1. Well, it seems to be going the Union's way at the moment, down to activation and stuff, but obviously time will tell. But at the moment it's looking good for the Union. They've got troops on first round. They've got all their troops on, and yeah, it's gonna be interesting. So at the very start we saw the 69th come on. They marched up to the bridge, looking to cross it. And soon after we saw a detachment of the 20th Maine under their second in command sort of leader, who marched them up. Then later on we saw the rest of the 20th Maine arrive, and then at the end, after the round, we used one of our flags to get the skirmishing unit in. So that's basically the whole of the Union deployed. And during that turn we saw a section of the 2nd Virginia come on. They ran to try and get out the board, so they took a point of shock to do that, but they didn't really get anywhere, so it's not very good. And then we had a section of the 4th Virginia come on as well, and they deployed and jumped the fence, ready to try advance up this field. Yeah, I didn't get the main activation for the Confederates, that's why I just brought on a few units, but it's just to get people on the board and get them up. And probably a good thing I did, because the whole Union force is here and they're ready to put up a fight. So we'll now switch on to round 2. Okay, so looking at what the Confederates got up to, so we've had a section of the 4th Virginia move up into this clearing, and they're looking to push over and just have a bit of a presence on this side of the table to try pin down some units, and they're supported by skirmishers as well. Again, they're hoping to lay some shots into the 69th, hopefully. What we had here was the main bulk of the 2nd Virginia turned up, and blocked by the small section of the 2nd in front of them. Their commander issued an order just to get them moving. However, they didn't really move far at all. They moved about an inch. So it meant the rest of the 2nd Virginia are kind of stuck behind them. But that commander rallied some shock off as well whilst he was here. And then up at the back here, we've got what's left of the 4th Virginia, who deployed and ran, and they managed to get a really good run up through the woods, and they took a shock, but he rallied it straight off with his command status. So we've got the Confederates on the board. They're just going to have to have some sort of formation now, because they're about to face up against a Union army that's wanting a fight. Okay, so we're going to end of turn 3 now. We've actually had some shots, so we'll quickly go with how the kind of turn went. We didn't really get much out. We had a few flags and Tiffin came up. But I did manage to move the 69th up, and then they knocked that shock off. However, they did get a random things happen for the movement. And basically they've rolled dress ranks, which means next turn they're going to halve their movement, I believe. So I've left that little dice there just to remind me. So next movement turn they're going to halve their movement. So that might play a bit of an issue for them as they're about to line up against a small force of Confederates. So yeah, they moved up with the flags at the end of the turn. Because obviously I didn't have any activation on any other leaders, I moved up part of the 20th Maine. And then at the back here, I moved the skirmishers up, and then they fired. And they fired straight into the Confederates, part of the 4th Virginia. So I'll just go over what happened with the Confederates, as probably not too good. So these, with the activation, I moved up, or I wheeled part of the 4th Virginia down here, as if they're ready to line up. Quite daunting for them to take on the 69th, but they're brave, I guess. And the skirmishers moved around as well. Kind of my mistake, really. I'm trying to obviously learn the rules, trying to figure out about activations and stuff. So these guys probably could have fired off into the 69th and done a bit of damage because they're in column, but they didn't. So my bad. So that was done with the 2 red flags I had. And going on back here, so a bit of damage from the Union. So when the skirmishers fired, they fired into the 4th Virginia, causing 2 casualties, and they rolled 2 6s, which would be insta-kills. Because they're skirmishers, then I'd roll that against the actual officer. I rolled both of them against the officer, and it hit the officer. So I did a roll on the officer, and he was killed. So that Confederate, the main officer for the 4th Virginia, has been shot and killed in battle. So yeah, Colonel Wright. So Colonel has been killed already, leaving that unit over there leaderless. What I can do each turn is roll. I think this turn coming, I ignore his token, even though it stays in the bag. And then the roll turn afterwards, every time his token comes out, I can roll on a d6 and hopefully get another leader back. Although I imagine he's going to be a status 1 leader. So yeah, good shots from the skirmishers. It's kind of made a bit of a mess for the 4th Virginia over there. So it's not looking good for the Confederates at all. I think they were just very unlucky first turn. I think it was the other way around when the Confederates got on first turn. They could have probably had a bit more of a beachhead, but that's what it is. Right, so we'll move on to turn 4. Okay, so we've got a bit more action now. So I'm going to start with the Confederates. So to start with, we had the I'll just go briefly over it. We had the part of the 4th Virginia. They actually open fired into the 69th whilst they were in column. Did quite a bit of damage. And then later on, I got a sharps practice where I used 2 cards to allow these guys to reload. Which actually, no, I can't do, so forget that. So I can't actually do that, but yeah, so these guys are fired into that open column. The skirmishers as well, I used sharp practice to actually get these chaps to fire. So they fired into the open line once the 69th had actually formed up. These chaps are able to fire. With this, I activated the 2nd Virginia. He told the part of the 2nd Virginia to move up, so they did, and then he moved up behind. Later on, the leader for the second part of the 2nd Virginia activated, and he just removed some shock because his unit couldn't do anything. And then the 4th Virginia up there, their leader token was pulled, but unfortunately he's dead, so nothing could have happened. The only thing is the 2nd Virginia chap, he actually knocked some shock off that unit. As for the Union, so yeah, the 69th marched up in column. They got kind of broadside by the 4th Virginia, so they took a bit of damage. They took 3 casualties, as well as their lower status leader was injured, and he therefore lost a status level. So he's now a status level 1. But he didn't die, luckily. So they took a load of shot. Like I said, they got shot once they formed up, or tried to. They're almost formed up. They were shot by the skirmishers as well, so they've done a bit of damage. Up here, the 20th Maine, they fired into the 2nd Virginia, causing 1 shock. Nothing else. The main part, so the rest of this 20th Maine, they've decided to wheel around and looks like they're going to jump the fence, just trying to get into the field, get some action. The skirmishers, they opened fire, causing 1 shock onto the 4th Virginia, and then I used sharp practice to let them reload. So yeah, that's how the turn goes. Like I said, I've kind of messed up the sharp practice on these chaps, so they technically aren't reloaded. They should have some smoke in front of them. And really, I would have had some cards free to possibly move the 4th Virginia up here or do something with them. But I haven't, so that's just how it is. So yeah, spicing up a bit. I've got to mention as well, the end of last turn, we dropped a force morale when the 4th Virginia's colonel was killed. So, right, that's how the table's looking though. It's just waiting for that big blob to start firing, and then I think the Confederates are in trouble. But hopefully these chaps may be able to do a bit of damage, so who knows. Okay, on to turn 4. Okay, so I actually forgot to record an end of turn recap, so I thought I'd just do one now and add it onto the video. So yeah, quite a short turn, but we had some activations at least. So to start with, we had the 2nd Virginia for the Confederates move up on the road, and the smaller unit in front managed to march up and kind of get out of the way of the main bulk of the Virginian infantry. The main bulk marched up and presented arms ready to fight the 20th Maine. The 69th New York for the Union managed to form up in line, ready to hopefully unleash some devastating volley fire next turn. The 4th Virginia kind of responded to the 69th and fired into them after they formed up, but didn't cause any casualties. Just to finish the turn off, the Union skirmishers fired off into the 4th Virginia at the top, but again didn't do any real damage. So yeah, that's the end of the turn, and then we'll roll on to the next one. Okay, so that was the end of the turn. I just had to nip out, so it's been about an hour since this turn finished. I've just got to remember what happened, but I'm fairly sure it's pretty straightforward. So we'll start with the Union. So the Union line fired off into the 4th Virginia, giving them a lot of shock and 2 casualties as well. So hefty damage done. Up at the back here, the skirmishers fired into the 2nd Virginia, or part of the 2nd Virginia. Did a couple, I think 1 more shock, so nothing terrifying. The 20th Maine fired off into the 2nd Virginia, which killed 1 person, gave him a bit of shock, but it created a random event, and that event was a big cloud of smoke has appeared up now. So anyone firing into the smoke gets a -2. A -1 to the shot. So yeah, I believe the skirmishers fired off as well into the 69th. I think doing 1 shock. Oh no, and also wounding the status 3 leader. So now he's down to status 2, as he was only wounded, he wasn't killed. And then I think the 4th Virginia up there returned fire against skirmishers, but doing nothing. So that was that turn. Like I say, apart from that, nothing else really happened, I believe. I'm trying to remember, but this is how it looks anyway. So what we'll do is go on to the next turn. Okay, so the end of a very short turn again. I'll just go through something quickly before we go on to the turn. I wasn't rolling for wounded officers on the Union side, so I did, and they actually went down 3 force morale. So they're on to 7 now, which isn't looking very good. So although I think the Confederates are up against it, the Confederates are sitting up on 9 force morale. So right, so we'll go through. So we pulled a couple of activations for the Confederates. So the main bulk of the 2nd Virginia activated, and what he did was fire. He probably should have used some stuff to take off some shock, but to be honest, he completely forgot, so that didn't happen. But he fired into the 20th Maine, doing 2 points of shock. So the 4th Virginia up there, they activated again with their leader activation. Obviously, they don't have a leader, so I had to roll and see if I could replace him, and I failed it, so they have not got another leader yet. And then the turn ended with 1 blue flag out in the open, so I used that on the 69th New York, and they reloaded and fired into the 4th Virginia down here, and they took a casualty and a point of shock, or 2 points of shock, can't remember now, or maybe 3, quite a few points of shock, and they were forced to withdraw up to 1 inch because of that's how the withdrawal works. So yeah, they not looking good, and because of that I rolled on a negative effect and I lost a force morale for it. So these guys aren't looking too good at all, and there's a good chance the 69th is just going to fire on them again next turn. Sorry, and yeah, not looking good. So we'll see how that plays out anyway. So someone needs to start ramping up some force morale damage, and I think that's going to kind of sort the game. So let's roll on to the next turn. Okay, so we've had a Tiffin card pulled first, which means that it's a chapter end. So what that means, it kind of represents a lull in the battle, and everyone's had an opportunity to reload. Any kind of fog or smoke or anything on the field clears, which we've had both. So everyone's reloaded. The smoke's cleared at the top. I had an opportunity to roll for my missing or killed leaders. Anyone who steps forward, I did roll and actually succeeded. So the fourth Virginia at the top there, they've now got a status 1 leader. So yeah. Apart from that, there's no other kind of things that affects us at a chapter end. So all it means is everyone's ready to fire again. So it's probably going to be a very bloody next turn, as they've all kind of they haven't really moved much, but they've had an opportunity to all kind of reload and get ready to fire. So let's roll on to the next turn. Okay, so end of quite a long turn, but we'll just go through it now. So to start with, Union skirmishers activated. They fired into the 4th Virginia up top, causing 3 shock. So they're on the fence there. They're not looking too good. And then the 2nd Virginia... Oh no, sorry, the 4th Virginia activated. They fired back at the skirmishers and then reloaded, but couldn't do any damage. Nothing, not even shock. And then the 20th Maine up here activated, I believe. Oh no, sorry, and the captain of the 69th, sorry. They activated, he just knocked some shock off. And then we had the 20th Maine, they wheeled round and presented, ready to fire. And then the 4th So yeah, then the 2nd Virginia activated up there, and they fired on the skirmishers. So they presented and fired, and because they had their first shot, first time they fired, they had quite a good few modifiers, and they put 3 shock on the Union skirmishers back there. So no casualties, but they did cause some shock. And then we ended up having I believe the 4th Virginia down bottom. They fired, not actually doing any damage though to the 69th, but they got shot off and reloaded. And then the main bulk of the 2nd Virginia activated. He basically put all the eggs in his basket and decided to charge up the road in a closed column and rolled a total of 3 inches, or moved a total of 3 inches. So not looking good for them. And because of that, they ended up getting a volley in the face from the small 20th Maine on the road there. So they fired and reloaded, and causing 1 casualty, I believe. Or maybe 3 casualties, I can't remember. Yeah, quite a few casualties on the 2nd Virginia. After that, the 69th New York fired and reloaded straight into the 4th Virginia down here and caused them to make a involuntary withdrawal. So they moved back an inch, but nothing came from that when it came to force morale, so they were lucky there. And then the turn ended. So with the Confederates flags they had, they used them to activate the skirmishers, who fired into the 69th New York and caused 1 casualty. So next turn. Okay, so end of a very short round again. We pulled a Tiffin first card, which means chapter ends. So everyone reloaded. Apart from that, that's it. So we're looking for potentially another bloody next round. Okay, so that was the end of a fairly short turn, but we still had activations. So to start with, we had the 69th New York fire into the 4th Virginia, killing one man and then sending them retreating. So they've bounced back. They've cost 1 force morale for the army because of it. So well played, Union. 20th Maine then fired into the skirmishers down here, killing 1 man and causing 2 shock. And then the 2nd Virginia on the road just activated and used a movement and a run just to get out of the road. So they moved a total of 7 inches, but costing 1 shock to do so. And that's the end of the turn, so we'll move on to the next turn. Okay, so another short round, but something's happened at least. So the 69th moved up, knocked some shock off and moved up slightly. The 20th Maine fired into the skirmishers, causing 1 shock. And then the 4th Virginia down here activated, and he just rallied 2 shock to try and get back into the fight. So that's all that happened this round, so we'll move on to the next. Okay, so at the end of another turn, it's not looking good for the Confederates. So the 69th New York fired off into what's left of the 4th Virginia unit over here. They took another casualty and some more shock, so they're about to leave the table. The 20th Maine fired off into the skirmishers here, and they took another point of shock. But up top here, I managed to get the Virginians to fire back at the skirmishers, doing nothing. The 4th and the 2nd Virginians both doing nothing, so it's unfortunate. And I believe the 20th Maine here fired into the 2nd Virginia there. So, it's the Union have got a bit of a firing line up now, and there's probably not much the Confederates can do about it. So we'll see what comes from next turn. Okay, so another turn's passed. So the skirmishers fired off into 69th, but didn't do anything. The 20th Maine returned fire into the Confederate skirmishers, and caused one shock, I believe. So not too bad. I think the 20th Maine unit up here fired into the 2nd Virginia, marching on the table and causing quite a bit of shock. And the skirmishers at the top fired into the 2nd Virginia little unit and did 2 casualties, or caused 2 casualties. So quite a bit of damage on the Confederate side. The 69th New York on Union fired into the 4th Virginia back here. Oh, sorry, and just wiped them out. So they're completely gone. They're off the table, and the force morale suffered massively for it. So with that, I think the Virginia unit, small Virginia unit up top, fired back at the skirmishers, killing 1. Apart from that, that's it for the Confederates. So it's not looking really good at all. So the Confederates have lost a command card out of the pool now. So they've only got 3 flags in there now. So that's going to affect their game. So we'll see how the next turns pan out. Okay, so this is the end of the round, and I'm going to make this the final round now. So we had starting off, we had some good activations from the Confederates. So we had the section of 4th Virginia at the back here. They fired into the skirmishers, but didn't get anything, unfortunately. And then the 1st Virginia actually moved up and formed. So they formed a line ready to fight. With that, we had the skirmishers for the Confederates activate, and they fired, but nothing came from it. Just before that, we had the 69th New York actually wheel round, so pivot round to look at the sights on the 2nd Virginia, ready to fire when they can. And then we had the skirmishers for the Union fire off into the small section of the 2nd Virginia down here and caused them to retreat. So we took a morale test for that. Luckily, nothing came from it. And then just to finish off, we had the section of the 20th Maine here open fire into the 2nd Virginia block here, broke the formation, and part of the formation has moved back, and they've had to take a morale test, and it cost 1 morale. So I think it's pretty much done here for the Confederates. So I'm going to call the game here. It's been going on for quite a while, and yeah, I don't see the Confederates doing really much anything else. So the force morale's finished on 2 for the Confederates. They would be down a flag next turn. And then the force morale for the Union still sits on quite a tasty 7. So a Union victory. So we'll just go to the after game. Okay, so that's the end of the battle. So convincing Union win by the looks of it. But really good fun to play. Like I said, it was kind of done as a learning the rules and having a kind of a play with a battle report set up. Hopefully this kind of works and people like it. I want to be doing a few more of these. So yeah, I hope it worked anyway. So I actually spilled over into a second day. That's why I look in different clothes, because I've just got back from work, so I thought I'd finish off the last turn, which looked like the Confederates maybe be able to put a bit of a front up, and then it's just that firing line of the Union that got set up, which seemed to smash it. So yeah, it's quite interesting to play, to kind of figure out some of the rules. There are some rules I haven't really used as well. I could have gone into a bit more in depth with, which I haven't, but I think that's just going to come with when I get a bit more confident with the game. Understand a bit more about the forces and how I should be playing the game as well. So I think bottling the Confederates up into one deployment zone probably was a bad idea. I should have had maybe paid my force support points and maybe purchased another deployment point. As I found the Union having 2 deployment points on the table allowed them to just get troops going, and also how the system or how the scenario was set up, having a deployment point for the Union closer to the centre of the table just allowed Union troops just to get on the table really fast. And I kind of wanted to do that with the Confederates, just get troops on really fast and just get them into the game, but it just didn't really work out like that. So yeah, hopefully my next game is probably going to be a bit more involved as well. So there's a lot more checking the rulebook in this game, but I think that's just going to come with start games. I think I played a few rules wrong as well. I don't think I played the roads quite well. I think I'm going to get a benefit of marching on road in closed column or open column, but I couldn't see that anywhere, so it might just be me not looking. So I think they should have been moving a bit more. So but yeah, just as a kind of a starting little refresher game, I think it went quite well. So I end the video here anyway. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and hopefully I'll have another battle report soon, and it might be a bit more of a fair match rather than a thumping for the Confederates. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, keep an eye out for any videos I do in the future. Cheers, guys.